In the Old Testament, we read about the preparations that King David made for the building of God's temple. He had wanted to build it himself, but the Lord told him that that would be the responsibility of his son Solomon. So instead of forgetting about the whole project, David made sure that preparation was made, and he encouraged his subjects to help him in this task. They responded enthusiastically, and 6 times over we read about how they did so willingly. And we read that in 1 Chronicles chapter 29, verses 6, 9, 14 and 17. Now we're going to think about willingness today in our reading from 2 Corinthians chapter 8, verses 10 to 15. And herein I give my advice, for this is expedient for you who have begun before not only to do, but also to be forward a year ago. Now therefore perform the doing of it, that as there was a readiness to will, so there may be a performance also out of that which ye have. For if there be first a willing mind, it is accepted according to that a man hath, and not according to that he hath not. For I mean not that other men be eased and ye burdened, but by an equality, that now at this time your abundance may be a supply for their want, that their abundance also may be a supply for your want, that there may be equality. As it is written, he that had gathered much had nothing over, and he that had gathered little had no lack. It appears that the Corinthians had not only talked about having practical fellowship with the Christians in Judea, but they had set the wheels in motion, who have begun before not only to do, but also to be forward a year ago, we read in verse 10. Now there had been a willingness, there was a readiness to will, verse 11, but for whatever reason it had slipped down their priority list. Paul urges them, now therefore perform the doing of it, also in verse 11. Transform your will into your works. They had been quick to say, we'll help. That eagerness to declare should be matched by a readiness to actually do. Now, there are different ways in which we can be hindered from putting our intentions into action, and Paul highlights one here. According to that he hath not, in verse 12. Now, it could be that we want to give more than we're able to give, and so we delay. Sometimes we make the perfect the enemy of the good. Now, Paul explains that they should not delay because they weren't able to give everything that they might have liked to. If they wanted to contribute, they should contribute according to what they had, not what they hadn't. It is accepted according to that a man hath, and not according to that he hath not, also in verse 12. What was more important, of course, was the willing heart, a readiness to do what they could, when they could. If there be first a willing mind, is what verse 12 says. Now, perhaps I should challenge myself as to how willing I actually am to make sacrifices for the needs of others. Now, Paul concludes this little section with an interesting principle to do with the equity that there should be among God's people. When we have the means, we should help those in need, because when they have the means, they can help us when we're in need. That's what Paul means when he writes, at this time your abundance may be a supply for their want, that their abundance also may be a supply for your want, in verse 14. And the principle is that we should help others in their time of need, and that they should help us in ours. Now, in quoting from the book of Numbers, Paul illustrates this point in the history of the children of Israel in the wilderness. Those that were able to gather more than the homer could share with those who hadn't been able to gather so much. He that had gathered much had nothing over, because he was sharing it, and he that had gathered little had no lack, because he received. Verse 15. Fellowship and sharing in this way is a wonderful way to bind God's people together in a mutual care and love for each other.